Welcome back to The Boys in Motion, the podcast where endurance meets absolute absurdity. I'm Brian, here with Andrew and Tyler, and today we're talking about two things that'll make you sweat: my bachelor party bar-a-thon and training in the summer heat.
So whether you're running for your life down the Ossington strip between downtown bars, trying to stay sharp in the scorching summer sun, we've got you covered with a bunch of stories, a little bit of science, and a few mistakes that we made along the way. So this episode has you covered from our hydration hacks to a couple questionable decisions, and there's definitely one specific person that was responsible for that.
That was freaky. Brian just celebrated his bachelor party by doing what any other rational man would do: running a nice half marathon with a ton of nice drink spots. Yes, you heard that right, folks. Let's buckle up.
So just this past weekend, we celebrated my bachelor party. I had asked Adam, and I guess Andrew, you had a huge part in planning this, but I had asked Adam to do something legendary just for one night. I was happy if it involved running, and I think you guys smashed it out of the park. So a huge shout out to Adam for planning this, and probably a bigger shout out to Andrew for actually getting everything to the finish line. So Andrew, maybe you're the perfect person to kind of give us the 30,000 foot overview of this.
So yeah, the Bachelor Bar-a-thon. Adam had come up to me and said we wanted to do this fun bar-a-thon, which for our purposes was we were doing a half marathon with 7 bar stops. I snuck in one extra sneaky one, so it ended up being 8 bar stops with one fun activity stop at the most exclusive bar in all of Toronto called Bar Stefan, and we'll get a bit more into that a bit later. So we did a nice route in Toronto, weaving through a bunch of different neighborhoods along the waterfront, varied bars. So it was a fun challenge to try to put together a list of bars and a route that would work for about sweaty runners, 4 bikers, and just trying to mingle those two groups and just have some fun with a little hint of chaos in the mix. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
A hint of chaos. I think that was a sequel to a friggin' nice movie. I don't know. I gotta do a round of applause to that planning because it basically worked out flawlessly. You know, all the bars were, let's call it open. Some of them closed to private events, but that didn't stop us. And just executed perfectly on the race choice.
And when we all arrived in Toronto and got the shoes on and we were laced up, and you unveiled the beautiful team jerseys, which were just awesome, which you pressed, Andrew. The vibes were so high when we started running. I was nervous, having heard rumblings about what this event would be, and especially when Adam started teasing out the drink options. When I heard that there was potentially not just 1 shot of tequila as an option, but 2 shots of tequila as an option, I was like, I don't think we're last in this. We might need to make some adjustments. But you know what? The planning committee had it right, and it was electric along the way. So yeah, I think we can kind of run down some of the highlights of that and more details on some of the lessons we learned.
Yeah, I think all the boys were buzzing right off the gate. We met at the Airbnb on the west end of Toronto, around Bloor and Lansdowne. And then we all departed, team jerseys on, took a picture, media mans, because there was a couple good media mans on this adventure. We just started going towards Henderson Brewing, and let me tell you, the pace was already pretty hot. The boys were moving, and then we made our first stop at Henderson to have our first beer. And I'll tell you, on a nice warm day, because it was warm, one of the warmest days it's been so far. Normally a nice cold beer on a warm day is the perfect thing. But I could tell, and I was happy with some of the decisions I made, because if we had more beers on this route, I think there would have been trouble. Because I could tell after that hot run, even that first beer, I was like, if I have to have too many of these today, there might be issues. The quantity was a little spooky, and I was already spooked one drink in.
Yeah, I think the quantity was spooky, and then when we got to that first stop, everyone had, I think, the same panic in their eyes. They're like, whatever, 7 or 8 of these, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like it was rough, but I mean, we all stuck it out and we all stuck together. But it was, yeah, a hot run, and the shirt color choice maybe was not thought out as much as the route, but I think it made for a classy appearance at all the bars. But yeah, the black shirts obviously made it that much warmer, but it was real nice matching sweaty with the boys.
It got hot, and on that first section, the pace got set at a pretty high standard. I guess we can kind of say the full story is like by the end of the run, we ended up running it at 5:25, and I think we were pretty much on pace between every stop, and it was just that first kilometer and a half that really set that standard, and we never dropped below that pace. So that was really, really fun. That first beer, like you say, it was like the first warning shot in the air, but everybody's spirits were high. McDuff showed up halfway through, had a little bit of vodka to join us in the drink train, and then we headed on to, what was it, Rhino, I believe. And there we did our first proper spin of the wheel, and we landed on a Guinness, which was amazing. We came into that bar just like a tsunami of sweat and loud mouths, because we're just like running off the street and just everybody's kind of in a panic, like, give me my Guinness, give me my Guinness. So they put us in the back corner and we were able to sit on the patio and split the G all together, which was awesome. But there was one man who did not do a full Guinness, which was Jacob, and he had a little alternative that he got, let's say, coaxed into, which was wild to see.
I mean, I think that worked out for him. That was a good option for him. The 2 tequila shots got him nice and going, and he was ready to rumble with the rest of the boys. So I don't know, that Guinness did sit better than I thought. I was real spooked about that second drink being another beer and a Guinness, but the boys were right. It was not as heavy as I thought, and it gave us the zoomies for the next one.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the benefits of the Guinness. I know, Andrew, you're a huge Guinness guy, and I did not know about the lack of carbonation, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, the Guinness, I think, was hit perfectly. And even though it was a second beer in a row, I didn't have the same concerns as that Pilsner at Henderson. The one concern I did have getting to Rhino as a co-organizer of the route, Brian mentioned we got in there pretty hot, demanding Guinness. And I was definitely having concerns of, are the next bars ready for what we're about to bring? And did I properly design this route? Because it's only going to get more belligerent from here. So I hope the other Toronto bars are ready for what is coming. And let me tell you, we were coming for that Ossington strip, and it was basically right around the corner. Before that, we went through Due West Fest, and that was tried to minimize it. I changed the route slightly so we were on Dundas less than originally planned, but we still just got packed into the sardine can that was Due West Fest to go into Wasted Youth, which, because of that festival, was actually a lot less busy than normal. So it actually worked out pretty well, and there was a special drink waiting for us there. What did you think about the drink there, Brian?
I will say that was, I think, the perfect drink for this perfect event, because the two beers, they kind of got us going, got the day started. But this kind of, like, it's like turbo-esque for anybody who's been to Handlebar Hanks. So it's got it's a full concoction scientist mix to get you going, and it got the people going. I think that's where the party actually kicked off, was during and after that drink, because coming through those crowds and then exiting back onto the busy street, the boys were flying high, let's just say.
I literally don't remember a bar name after that drink. Let's just say that. I do not remember what any of the other bars were called, but that was nice. It was a nice touch of fruitiness, but also gets you fired up, and it was actually refreshing. Super refreshing, nice little sliver in the wall, and he served us quick time. It was nice.
The other thing that I really enjoyed was that we hadn't done too much running. Like some of like these, I guess like the first 5 bars were really heavily weighted to the front of the run, which got the attitudes going early, which was really, really nice. Yeah, so Wasted Youth was a great stop, and the drink there matched perfectly with what we wanted to get out of it.
That's one of the go-to dive bars, and I think for the occasion it worked out perfect. And I loved that they had that nice get the party going drink to give us. And let me tell you, it got the fellas going, because once we hit that Ossington strip, I wish a segment and we were racing down it, because that's basically what it was. Slightly downhill. It was maybe about 750 meters to a kilometer down Ossington all the way to Queen from Dundas. And the boys were ripping. I think everyone was just used to the Peloton from the weekend before the BIM ride. We were 2x2 going fast. I don't have the exact pace, but it felt like we were rolling quick. And if anyone's hand was anywhere in the vicinity of where we were,
Exactly.
we were slapping hands, having a good time. And everyone on the strip on the patios were loving the squad coming through.
Well, yeah, it was wild. That was the most nutty segment of my life. I'm gonna pull it up on Strava. Tyler, say what you were gonna say. I'll see if I can quickly find the pace of that little block there.
I was just gonna say I feel like they should put that on the marathon route in Waterfront, because those patios on both sides made for an amazing like crowd feeling, and people were just like either like chirping at us or fired up, like you said, hands out, and we were just yelling and screaming and giving it back to everybody. It was, and I can't believe we didn't get any.
I think due Westfest happening, so there was less cars that were going up and down Ossington because of it being blocked, helped a lot, because normally it can get quite busy. But yeah, it seemed like people should have been way more mad with what we were doing. But everyone was loving it. They saw the matching shirts, the energy was high. I think people wanted to join, to be honest.
Exactly. I love the left hand turning by Mark. That was the best. That was the highlight of that segment.
Okay, Brian, I saw your face.
Yeah.
So I feel like you've got some paces for us.
I saw the face.
So I do. I have in my 7th kilometer, which is us leaving Dundas and going down all the way to Queen and then doing some of Queen, which is approximately that segment. I have it at a 4:04, which is belligerent. Now, there is quite a bit of a drop, so I actually do kind of believe it, but there's, some chaos in the timing. But it was rapid, and I think around that, I have some maybe it was closer to 4:30 ripping down that segment now that I'm actually looking at it live. So around 4:30, which for the group, that is a sprint for some people's paces, although it might be Andy's like 100K at this point. For some people, that's faster than their 5K.
Yeah, I thought you were joking when we, stopped at that next bar and you were like, we were ripping 4:30. I was like, there's no way. I was just feeling nice and fired up and was just following the boys in front of me.
Yeah, and so lots of excitement. I think all the fellows were revved up, and we were getting to our classiest stop of the evening. And so I really, as part of this bar-a-thon, I really wanted to go somewhere with nice cocktails. And the only way to make that happen was to go to Quinn's partner's bar, Out of Character, OOC, where she is doing delicious infused cocktails. So the drinks were amazing. And Brian, I'll let you speak to that a bit, because you got a special cocktail off the menu, and we all got some nice highballs with the infused liquor. But we also came in just guns a-blazing in there. And it was kind of a little quieter because it was during the day, and it's also a tea shop. So again, just an interesting atmosphere. We, mixed right into the group. But yeah, Brian, tell us about your drink and what you thought of this stop.
So I'm trying to find exactly what it was called, because I'm blanking on the name, but it was a very, very delicious cucumber infused, I believe, gin drink.
Greenhouse.
Greenhouse, yes, greenhouse something. I'm trying to find it right here. They probably update their menu enough that this one is like it's just a picture of it, but it doesn't actually have that specific one. But anyways, it was a greenhouse named drink, and it was delicious because it had cucumber infused alcohol. It was perfectly balanced with some lime, some citrus. I would recommend that spot to anybody. Go check it out. Hopefully there's not a group of 10 runners who are hooting and a hollering while other people are on their laptops working away right next to us. And I do think that that one couple who bonked their head on the light on the way out, they were trying to escape the chaos that we were setting pace for in there. So felt a little bit bad for everybody who was sitting around us, but it was delicious. The best drinks of the day for sure were consumed there. And I remember trying some other people's drinks, and everything was, yeah, very, very high quality. So would recommend for any event, maybe not the half marathon, marathon.
And
Yeah, that was so nice. I just loved we got in and we just started not even yelling. We were just shh, Mark with the shh, just shushing people. Well, shushing us, but it was just so loud.
I feel like something else we need to talk about, and something that was nice, I think it was Brad at the beginning that was like, you guys should do this, kind of like a check of how everyone's doing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like, you know, like just making sure people are still good, you know, with the running, the drinking, like there's a lot going on, making sure everyone in the group is still good. And I really just enjoyed the progression of those and the belligerency that just out of the answers, and there's some really good videos of it that, yeah, watching those the day after the event was so good. But we did pick up someone new at this stop, and that was Quinn. And I remember seeing his face, and just kind of he was being a sober person at this point. It was the concern in his face, and I think he knew what he was about to get into. But yeah, he fit right in. And then we were going to Bar Stefan. And this was the stop that I was probably the most excited for the bar-a-thon.
Yeah, and this was totally unexpected. I never would have dreamed that we would have mixed in some beer ball on Quinn's rooftop patio. It was hilarious, and I'm so glad that Quinn was able to join us. And you're right, he was like deer in headlights when we came stomping into out of character. But you know, he got into character very quickly because he joined the guys. He had a little extra courage juice at out of character before we left. And he quickly picked up the pace and kept the group moving. Because I remember leaving out of character, he was sprinting, just like we were sprinting before, going through Trinity Bellwoods. But yeah, great that Quinn opened up his home to the belligerency that followed. So yeah, we played a quick game of beer ball each, I think. Every person went for a round. Did you actually end up playing one, Andrew, or were you just the game master?
I was just the game master. I think I was going to play one, and then we were already a little bit behind schedule, so we wanted to get there. So I took an extra drink as a punishment. So yeah, unfortunately, I did not get to play one. But one of my favorite moments of it was when I was spinning the wheel, and we were picking the teams. And in Tyler's phone, Mark, one of the brave souls that was doing this event, his name is Vark with a V instead of an M, and everyone was chanting Vark, 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 and there's a video of it too. And then I spin the wheel and I just go, and it's Vark, and everyone just screams Vark, and that was
legendary. So many legendary moments, and
That's the highlight.
one of the highlights for sure. And we got so much good stuff on video. I remember immediately after the games, while we're leaving, of course, you, Michael, and Mark, like I'm looking at you, Ty, the three of you have the exact same pair of Cliftons. And coming through the door, nobody thought like, oh, we should, segment them around so that we're not mixing and matching the shoes. But while we were leaving, you're trying to all get the right combination of shoes, and it's just so hilarious. You three on the floor slapping each other silly with shoes. It was crazy.
Oh, that was real nice. You wouldn't get that anywhere else but at Bar Stefan, I think. That was nice. It was good, refreshing kind of, let's call it half an hour at least over there. You know, tarps off. We were able to decompress a little bit, cool down, and then we got back to business.
It was great, and I think one of the keys there was that we were able to chill, and then it was straight back to business. Because I think this is now where we had some actual proper running to do, if I'm not mistaken. Or did we have one more quick stop?
It was about 1.5, 2K. So not a little, but definitely further than the last couple. There was a couple where it was like a kilometer or less, and then you're at another bar. So I think we had about 2 kilometers until Escape Manor.
Oh
And
yeah.
this
True.
is where we added some more, not very drunk souls into the mix. And I think they were also a little shook once we rolled into Escape Manor. They were before we arrived. They were doing an escape room, and they were just hanging out, having some nice casual drinks. And then we roll in hot.
I
And
love the drink choice here. Was this the wheel as well, or did we?
No, this was generously given to us by. So the reason we went here was a friend, Jordan, runs Escape Manor as the manager there. So he chose the Jaeger bombs
Oh, freaky! I
for
didn't
the
know
drink.
that.
So that was very nice of him, and we appreciate that. That was another great drink to just bring more excitement. Not that we needed it at this point, but it was really nice.
And I think this was another moment where the reality sank in of what we were doing, because keep in mind, by this point we were roughly halfway, but I still don't think we were quite halfway at this point. And so this is the first time I think that I realized in the evening that we still had quite a bit of running to do. Which, hey, don't get me wrong, that's what we asked for. But the reality was sinking in. And the other funny thing was having the bikers join us now. They were hopping on city bikes, following us around, and sometimes pushing the pace as well. But it was just fun to be rolling as a full squad through the city. And there were points where even us runners were dropping the cyclists because they'd have to go and, purchase, check in, check out their bikes every time. And we could just tear out the streets. And I want to give a shout out to friend, oh, I'm not supposed to say her name, but the Rascal, we'll bleep that. The Rascal's friend Noelle, who impromptu saw us running down the street in the financial district and yelled from across the street. I don't know if anybody else caught that, but I got a text a few minutes later of, hey, we just saw you running, which is so funny because she didn't know we were out there doing that, but who else would it be but us flying
Yeah, she's
through.
like, there's these freaks. I bet you it's Brian and the boys.
And she was right. So funny. So where did we go to after Escape?
So this was
No
our
idea.
first actual significant stretch of running. And that's probably why you don't remember what came next, because we actually had about 6 kilometers to do, which was almost as much as what we'd done leading up to this.
Wild. I can't even fathom why or how we just did that without even caring.
And there were some good moments on this stretch, and I think the first big one that I think was significant was when we met the Wrangler. And I believe, I forget what, that was when we were going towards the waterfront trail. I forget, were we on Bay? Anyways, when we were going down close to the waterfront trail, and we met the Wrangler. And was it Brian, were you the one that first came on to, or past the Wrangler? Because was it you that he gave the $20 to?
So
Oh, that.
I received the $20, but I was not the one who was chatting at first. But he approached, some of the people who were out in front and kind of started asking, like, what's going on? What is this for? And then he read the shirts. And he was very interested and keen to understand what was going on. And the moment he explained it, he was whipping out some bills to try to pay for our next round, which was hilarious and very appreciated.
Yeah, it was nice. And then I went back, and we saw he was wearing a Wrangler shirt, so he was the Wrangler in the phone. I got his number, and I said, we got a bar stop on the East End, but we're messaging you after the last one because we're going to meet up later. So got the Wrangler shirt, and then we carried on to the waterfront trail. And there was a nice moment on the waterfront trail where Vark, once again, I think his legs started feeling it. And there's a nice stretch out picture of, was it Jacob stretching out the Vark? And that was a good moment.
Oh, just starfished on the sidewalk. Just the Vark just getting stretched out. That was really nice.
But yeah, this was a nice, good portion. And I'll say the pace was still very nice, very strong, very consistent.
Yeah, I think that's where I started to break the legs a little bit, starting to realize okay, we're actually running a half marathon. Before then, everything was just fun and games and a little bit of wooziness, and now it was getting into the real, you could say, the typical pain cave. I was like, oh, we're actually running here, and it wasn't like 5 minutes to the next stop. So that was a little bit of a change, but the spirits were still high. I can't believe the pace was high. The boys were talking still. Everyone was just in a group chatting it up. It was great.
Yeah, it was great, but it was also fast, and this is, like you say, Andrew, I think where the pace really like settled into at the end. And I have from kilometer 13 all the way to 18, the average there is sub 5, which for some, now I know
I had no idea.
we did some stretch stopping and just like some regrouping, but that's what the pace was at the front of the pack anyways. And what's wild about that is for some, again, reinforcing, it's hot summer day essentially, and we're very, very well hydrated in all the wrong ways, but all the right ways for the day. And we were setting people's 5K PRs essentially.
Yeah, during this stretch, and I mean, there was almost an incident with Adam where he was a little too hydrated and thought he had to get rid of some of it, but nothing ended up happening there. But at this stretch, I think is when I was really like, how is Adam doing this? I was like, this man.
Exactly.
Like, if you take out all of our bar stops and all that, this is definitely his half marathon PR. And we're cooking super quick. And I was like, but he's just trucking all the way along. And I was like, I was impressed.
What I love is right off the bat, he's like, I'm doing a half marathon PR. And we're like, okay, yeah, we started off hot, but we thought we were going to get some dropper bands. But oh no, we started off hot and it stayed hot. And what's even crazier is that, like, I won't say half, I'd say a few of our group, probably was their half marathon PR. McDuff has never run a half marathon in his life and just ripped one up with the boys on a hot summer day, very well hydrated. So I think there's a lot of the guys in the same boat. It was real nice.
Yeah, and so just to validate some numbers, Adam's actual fastest half was 2:19:55. That's like his race half. And I had a moving time for my portion of running of 1:54:22. So that just goes to show you how much we were tearing it up. I won't talk about the elapsed time. Let's say that transparently. It was 5 hours and 35 minutes.
That's the best part.
So we were stopped far longer than we were moving, but when we were moving quick. So I will say that this last bar, or I guess second to last bar, now on the east end, was, I think, the toughest drink to consume, and maybe where I think the most pain was being felt by the whole group. This is one of the lower spirit places, I would say, for the gang.
And the sun was going down too. It was just very low.
And the moment there that I remember, and that's how I knew people were hurting, is that someone had like a half beer, or I don't remember who it was, but they handed it to Adam. And then Adam just chucked it in the garbage, and that's how you know the drinks, the rejecting the drinks. I don't want any more beer.
Yeah, that was brutal. And I also have a nice quote from Brian that I'll never forget. I got it on camera too, which is real nice because I did the nice panning in. Hey, how is everyone feeling? And we were not feeling good at that point. But Brian goes, he's sitting on the floor. He goes, 6K left. About 3 hours to go. Let's go. Just like, all right. He knew that elapsed time was pretty high.
Yeah. So we left there. We did some, again, speedy running, and we ended up needing a quick food stop. Now, I think in hindsight, stopping for pizza was one of the biggest mistakes of the evening, because chucking a full slice or two for some into the already full bellies really put, I think, a damper on everybody's ability. Now, we were coming up to the end of the run, but I do think if we were doing this all over again, I would have voted to kind of keep moving instead of doing a pizza stop. But I think some people needed a little bit of food, but for some, it just made the suffer a little bit tougher.
Yeah, that bogged me down, but it was real nice pizza. But yeah, it definitely bogged me down. Of course, increased that elapsed time, but the vibes were still high at that pizza stop.
But then after this pizza stop, and I agree, this was a mistake for me as well. I was way too full, and this made it so that for the next stop, my stomach was just like, I don't want anything left. But I remember going out and I was helping the bikers. I was making sure they knew where they were going for their bikes. And then I look
Oh
up.
yeah, we dropped Andrew.
Oh, I didn't start. I never started. And then so the original route was we were on Queen East, just over the just east of the DVP, and we were supposed to run to Broadview and then make a right immediately. And I thought if I ran pretty quick up to Riverdale Park, which was on Broadview, I thought I could maybe catch you guys, but I never found you. But it turns out you guys just never made that right and just crossed the DVP the same way we came over it. But I was with the bikers, so it was nice. I still did have a group to be with.
That's good you had a support crew because you said you were going through the rougher parts of town at some of those moments, so I'm glad you had some support. We had Quinn who was leading us the direct route back. But not only Quinn was quick at this moment, and this is where I think we need to give a big MVP shout out to I think the master of this event and the man who was tuned for this, which was Mike. Mike absolutely crushed this event. I think this was some of the best running that I've ever seen him do. From the perspective of relative to everybody else in the group, he was feeling excellent. Every time I did a check-in with him, he's like, I'm doing great. This is easy. And we're dropping other people who, like, arguably are faster runners than him. But
You're
just
dropping me.
suffering.
I was dropped.
Yeah. So it was an impeccable and maybe one of the all-time bin athletic performances.
That's so nice. I agree.
100%.
Yeah, I want to race him in a beer mile. I think you might beat me.
That'd be freaky.
This is true. Now, like, I got to ask the question: was this easier or harder than a beer mile?
That's what I was gonna ask.
I think harder than a beer mile, just because of the length, the heat, yeah, and drinks consumed. Yeah, definitely harder.
Fair enough, but what I would say is for like that the feeling of the stomach, I think the beer mile might be harder just because you're consuming so much so fast and running so quickly. Yes, it's over soon and it's not that hard to do, but it's like the 5K versus the marathon, right? It's that searing pain that you get in the beer mile versus this, which was a little bit more manageable, but just way longer, like easier pain.
A grind and a lot of fun too.
So we arrived and we still had about 700 meters to go at the finish line. So we ended up just doing circles near
we were like
Dundas.
rats. We kept going around. All of us were just trying to get our watches up to 21.1. I know me and Vark went a whole different way, and then we all tried to meet back up. That was funny too.
So I have a question though, because Tyler, looking at your Strava post, it is not a half marathon. It is 12.75 miles, and
you got the investigator.
I know how to divide 26.2 by 2, and let me tell you, it's 13.1.
Oh,
so what happened?
I was good for the most of the run. I know some of the boys had some problems with pausing and unpausing the watch. I think Adam stayed at a bar and had his Strava on for like 20 minutes. So I did the opposite. I think after the pizza stop, I kept my watch paused for a good 600 meters. And that's what killed me at the end. I looked up and I was way off of Mark's time. And I went and did like one of those little circles at Dundas Square. And then I'm like, okay, frig this. I'm just gonna stop it here. I just need another drink.
No, it was incredible. So we capped it off at the Imperial Pub. I think most people ended up running the full distance. McDuff ended up doing more than the full distance. Shout out to him. He ran about 5K to meet us at the 1.5K mark. So he did a little bit more, but overall, everybody had a really successful run. No pukes that we really know of. The pacing was good. The boys were, a little bit chaotic, but it really defined a true aerobic effort for everybody. And capping it off at the Imperial Pub was a nice way to do it. And I wrote on my Strava, Tyler equals MVP. And there's one reason. There's one reason, which is at the end, I will say there was some time to recuperate. People weren't feeling 100%. I was questioning whether or not the night would continue.
Spirits
And
were low.
spirits were low, energy was low, but Tyler, being the true endurance king, the Iron Man, had enough in him to get that party started again. So shout out to you. I don't think we need to go into any of the pretty things that happened after the Imperial Pub, but I can say that was definitely an MVP moment to bring us all together and get us riled up again.
I had to rally the boys. I said, you know what, I'm going to finish my drink and then we're going to go get some more. So I think that was a good way to kind of cap off the run and end the night. It was good. I knew the spirits were low, but we were ready to get fired up.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I know we said we'd talk about summer heat training as well this episode, and we teased that in the front end, so I'm not going to edit this out or anything, but I think at this point in the episode, this is what the episode's going to be about, and maybe we can just kind of do a little bit more chat time and roundtable about this, and next episode, we'll jump into heat training and really like how to adjust your training plans and all of your activities to that summer heat that's coming around the corner and that has hit us hard in the last few weeks as well. So let's just stay on topic. What are some questions you guys have that you want to chat about? Tyler, I'm looking at you because you mentioned that you had some.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I want to go round table here. This is my round table moment. What was number one stop of the event? What did you guys prefer the most? The best stop?
I can kick this one off. I feel like the one that I thought was the funniest. Well, no, they're all great, but the one the one that just sticks in my mind is Rhino because of how we went in guns a-blazing, as I mentioned. And as the person with, I'm just like, the gears are spinning of like, are these other bars going to be okay with this event we've planned? And I just remember the belligerency, the excitement over, that was the first time we got to use the drink wheel and the excitement there. Getting the Guinness, which is something I really wanted to get because there's Brian, well, before this event, he didn't like Guinness. Or
maybe converted
Guinness.
I hated Guinness. I'm giving it a new light.
Yeah.
I'm giving it a new light. I hated Guinness.
New light,
Exactly.
new light, yeah.
Yeah, so I think being able to convert a few people onto Guinness and just the excitement, I feel like that really started to build that excitement. I felt like the pace got a little bit more aggressive after that point. So I thought it was like a good just launch pad into what was just the perfect event.
For sure. It's crazy that it got more aggressive after Rhino, especially considering running into Rhino and across the street, somebody, wink wink, somebody's legs almost got taken out by a cab or two. So I can't believe it got more chaotic after that, which is hilarious.
You're supposed to cut off cabs and you say, "Hey, I'm walking here." So we just had to do that, and it was a pure Toronto moment.
That's fair. Pure Toronto moment, Canadian heritage moment right there. Tyler, what about you? You asked the question. Let's hear it from you. I know mine. I've got it teed up.
Mine is 110% bar Stefan. I loved the rooftop patio. I honestly, because the stops were so short, I kind of didn't understand where we were going. We were like led up this staircase, this dark staircase. I'm like, wait a sec, is this a bar or is this a house? I was super confused at first, and then the roof, and then I figured it out, and it was just beautiful moment. I loved the game, and the teams and the bonding moment there with the boys was pretty fun. I really liked Bar Stefan.
Yeah, that was amazing and such a great surprise. One of my all-time favorite games to play, and I'm glad we got that little release of energy after that, and the sprints. Okay, let me switch gears. My favorite bar was Out of Character, bar none. Not only do I think that was the best drink of the evening, just taste-wise, but I also think it showed the true difference between the regular people and the chaotic BIM squad at that moment. Because just sitting in a place where, it's like, it was very quaint, quiet, and not built for a gang like ours, and we made it our own. We carved out our little slice of chaos in the spot, and I do need to give a shout out to Valerie for even letting us be there and staying there, because if that was my spot and I saw the the chaos train come in, I'd have been like, Quinn, I don't know about this. You gotta get these guys out of here. But she was happy enough to cook up some amazing drinks for us. And I think even the sprints into out of character between Wasted Youth and out of character really set up out of character for a successful visit.
100%. You couldn't have said it any better. I think too, like people at the tea shop before, getting into the whole area were very confused because we came in like out of breath. Like we were just done sprinting, pause the watch, and just go right into the bar, and we were just like 10 sweaty men wearing black, all like huffing and puffing. It was probably a shock to most people in there.
It was just a belligerent event. There were so many good moments. I feel like every single bar had like five huge highlights that I feel we could just dig into, and just, yeah, it was so much fun wrapped into one afternoon.
I totally agree. So some big shout outs to everybody who joined. Like that run squad was unmatched. I think everybody that was there was ready for what that event was, and nobody kind of dragged down the energy or anything like that, which is all you can wish for an event like that, because everybody was pushing the pace together and there was nobody who was left behind, which was really, really great. So yeah, just a huge thank you to everybody. A huge thank you to the media mans, especially you, Tyler, who was very diligent, and also Jacob,
That was big.
Jacob brought a disposable camera and it got some incredible shots, and they just look more iconic when they're taken with a
Exactly. Like
disposable.
these are postable. Like mine are belligerency, which are just funny, but his are legit postable. They were a nice aesthetic.
Yeah, I totally agree. So the aesthetic, Jacob's always got that unlocked. So it was just a pleasure with everybody there. And yeah, so thank you very much once again, both of you, Adam as well, and then everybody who joined and supported.
Now, I must say, this brings up the question. We've done beer miles in the past, and we've done it with a slightly larger group, but in certain runnings of the beer mile, we've struggled to get people that want to do that event. But after seeing the performances of this event, I feel like if the crew wanted to do a beer mile, there'd be a good showing. And I think it would be a very, very fun event to do now that, just a year has passed and now so many people are getting into running and, also pretty good at hydrating as well.
Look, I don't want to say this, and I don't think this is actually ever going to be in the plans, but we do have an event in about a month where the squad, a lot of the squad will be reunited at the wedding. And I know, oh frig, I've done it again. Okay, I'm gonna have to bleep this one out. I know the rascal will not love this idea, so I'm gonna already say that it won't happen. But that would be a freaky event to host there. But maybe some other time. Or Tyler, you might have a bachelor party.
I mean, first of all, your wedding's in the afternoon, so what are we doing in the morning? And second of all, yes, I do have to plan that, so who knows? I have a freaky series of events planned for my events.
But I do agree, whether or not it's something that is coming in this near term or maybe like medium term, I think a beer mile that's scheduled would be a banging success.
100%.
All I gotta say, Brian, is never say never, because when I asked you about 3 months ago, when I said, oh, what are you doing for your bachelor party? You said, oh no, I don't want to have a bachelor party. I'm not gonna do one. It's just gonna be the BIM Ride barbecue, and look where we ended up. So never say never.
That's true. That's true. Always pushing the pace, always on to the next thing. And another thing, and I don't know if we've actually talked about this on the pod yet, but it's worth mentioning because the training plan for me starts next week, which is post Ottawa Marathon. I said never again. And I've signed up for the Toronto Waterfront Marathon for October 19th. So you will see me putting in some running miles. I've got Fitzinger 55 over 18 weeks with some cycling mixed in, and the calendar's already built. So the training plan shall start soon.
Wow, that's crazy news. I can't wait to see the things you do there, because I know you're a bike fiend, and now you're just going to be tasting those road runners, and you're going to love it.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what the goal is for Waterfront. Won't get into that now, because then I'll just have a million questions for you, and this episode will just get a little too belligerent. And it's
just be a part two.
it's already met the belligerent quota for an episode.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I think this is a good natural spot to wrap it up, and we can dive into that next week along with that heat and just that rise in temperature is something that I think every runner cyclist needs to be wary of, especially because there's a lot of our squad and a lot of listeners who maybe haven't done a full-fledged training plan where the heat has been such a factor.
Yeah, absolutely. I just did my most recent first heat workout, and let me tell you, not fun. Not fun at all, but excited to dig into it. Before we keep going, let's just wrap it right there and just close off this episode because I feel like we could go on forever. But yeah, whether you're chasing a PR like Brian's about to be, or just chasing pint glasses, we're glad that you came along for the run.
Yeah, you stopped it there because I could have kept going forever. And again, just that weekly reminder, make sure you follow us on Instagram, join Boys in Motion group on Strava for events near you. And if you know someone training in the heat or just wants to drink when he's really thirsty, send them this episode.
That's the Script Master Ty signing off. This is Brian signing off. But before I do, quick reminder, we're not medical pros. Stay smart, stay hydrated, consult a coach or a doctor before trying anything too spicy out there.
All right, well here it says that we're supposed to try a thing. So are we trying this?
Hell yeah.
All right, ready? Tyler, you give it. Give us a 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. Keep it sweaty. Keep it steady. And remember,
the boys are always in motion. That was the perfect sign off to the perfect episode. We'll see you next week for 52.
Stay belligerent.